But I heard someone made a video on Sicilian, Langfocus, Lu Siciliano. Man, I hope, because I love the guy. So, but I can be a bitch when it comes to my dialect, my language, right? So I'm gonna be nitpicky because I am, but let's jump right into it. Italy, yeah, Sicily, the Palermo, that's my home right there.
In this video, we're going to talk about the Sicilian language,
Siciliano.
which is spoken in Sicily, of course, Italy's southernmost region. The nation of Italy is home to numerous dialetti, dialects that can be grouped together with similar ones and classified as languages.
Yeah.
One of those languages is the national language Italian, but there are others like Sicilian. While Sicily is closer to Malta and Tunisia than it is to Rome, the Sicilian language is not related to Arabic or its descendant Maltese. It's an Italo-Romance language, like other languages of central and southern Italy. So
Yeah, he's correct. Did you notice that at first it said, like on the title, it says Lu Siciliano, but then the voice said U Siciliano and he gave that option. Personally, I would say U Siciliano with a U Siciliano. I wouldn't say Lu, but it's probably dependent on which area of Sicily, because that's in fact one thing that I hope he's going to say. I'm sure he will, he's a pro, that there isn't one single Sicilian. And for instance, the Sicilian I speak in Palermo is very different from the Sicilian spoken, say, in the eastern coast. So for instance, Catanese, Catania, Messina, but also from Agrigento, the southern Sicilian, or even Trapani is different, and the vowels system is also very different, and Trapani is not that far away from Palermo. So also when he said it's not related to Arabic, it's true, but it does have some common vocabulary from Arabic. But I'm not, that would be a massive nitpick because he didn't say that. I'm sure he's going to say that. So let's go.
So it has a lot in common with Standard Italian,
Yeah.
which developed from Tuscan dialects, but has a lot of little differences as well.
Yeah.
I once heard Joe Rogan say that his Sicilian ancestors didn't speak real Italian. They actually spoke some pig Latin type shit.
Oh, please. Did Rogan say that? Oh, no. Come on, man. Come on.
But Sicilian is not a pig Latin version of Italian
Thank you.
or broken Italian. It's a different language that's
Thank you.
similar to Italian. History.
Exactly. In fact, Sicilian, if we really want to say, yeah, you see how it's dividing what I just told you? This guys. The way I look at it is that Sicilian is not a dialect of Italian. Sicilian is a dialect of Latin, just like Italian is a dialect of Latin. They are sister languages. Now, the simple fact that now in our day and age, Italian is the standard language. I speak it, of course, natively. And Sicilian is relegated to the status of a dialect, just like many other dialects from other regions of Italy. It's just a matter of social linguistics, but it's not a matter of, well, one is not actually a language. No, that's why people call them regional languages, and I think it's more apt as a description. But yeah, look at that. Look at that.
Not much is known about the original languages of Sicily, which were gradually displaced by Greek during the period of Hellenic colonization. But then by the year 241 BC, the Roman Empire had conquered Sicily in the First Punic War and ruled it until the 5th century. Latin began spreading and was the language of administration and the elite, while Greek was still spoken by much of the general population, especially in urban areas and in eastern Sicily.
And then they swap. So Latin becomes the language that everybody speaks, and then Greek becomes the language that the elite start speaking because it makes them sound cultured.
Many people became bilingual in Vulgar Latin and Greek. In the
Not Vulgar Latin, mate. I'm not gonna... Usually I get really mad when people say that, but I like this guy, so I'm not gonna get too mad. But Vulgar Latin, I attack the notion that Vulgar Latin was a thing. I don't think Vulgar Latin existed. It's Latin. I've already defended this many times, so I'll just do it very quickly. But the idea is, when people say that Romance languages did not, because that's how people say it, he didn't say that, which is why I'm not going to attack him directly. But when people say Romance languages like French, Romanian, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, what have you, they do not derive from Classical Latin, which had already stopped being used. It derived from Vulgar Latin, and they make a distinction. The distinction is nonsense. The idea that they would be two separate languages is not true, and the reality is that it was all Latin. And so yeah, the Romance languages derive from Latin, and the difference between Classical Latin and Vulgar Latin is simply a matter of register, in the sense that, yeah, if you go to a lecture at a university and you listen to a professor giving that lecture in English, he will not use the same vocabulary, and sometimes even the pronunciation may change, or the way he builds up his structures. His syntax will be different to the way maybe someone speaks in the streets, but it's still all English. It's not that one is vulgar English or one is classical English that then dies, and then it's all English, and they are just different registers. And these registers are affected as well by the written versus spoken form of any vernacular. For instance, you're inside an elevator or a lift and you listen to a recorded voice, and they might swap the order of some nouns, for instance, sometimes. Floor 9, like it will sound different, but it's all English.
Many people became bilingual in Vulgar Latin and Greek. In the year 535, the Western Roman Empire fell, leaving Sicily as part of the Byzantine Empire. Its official language was Greek. Greek experienced a revival in some areas, but others remained Latin-speaking, especially Western Sicily. Then in the 9th century, Sicily came under Arab rule, first under the Aghlabid dynasty and then the Fatimid Caliphate. Greek and Latin declined as a form of Arabic called Siculo-Arabic became widely spoken. This variety of Arabic is actually the ancestor of the Maltese language. After the Normans conquered Sicily in the 11th century, they encouraged the use of Latin and Romance dialects, meaning Vulgar Latin and Norman French, and Arabic declined. The variety of Vulgar Latin spoken there was beginning to develop into a distinct language.
Yeah, you see, it's the same kind of situation that I was saying. There is Latin, then Latin evolves into Vulgar Latin, Latin dies, and then from Vulgar Latin you have these. I personally think this is nonsense. But everything else was great. The history was good. I love that he put Sicilian from Latin rather than putting it underneath Italian. So I guess one negative, one positive, they annihilated themselves. Plus he used BC, so he got 10 points because of that.
Language, Sicilian, with some influence from Arabic and Norman French, as well as Greek. As Sicilian developed, Sicily continued to be ruled by a succession of different rulers, including the Crown of Aragon, which brought Catalan influence, and the Spanish Habsburg dynasty, which brought Castilian influence. Words of Arabic origin.
There we go, you see?
It doesn't seem to me like a huge number of Arabic loanwords are still used in Sicilian, but some are. For example, the word balata, meaning stone or a slab or a
I confirm that. I do use it, and when it's really big, we say balatone. When it's really big, it's a balatone big. Yeah, we say that, correct?
tile. From Arabic, balat. The word
gelo,
meaning ice, comes from Arabic, jala,
tabboto,
meaning coffee.
Gelu, would I... Well, I guess, yeah. Is it from Arabic, though? I don't know the etymology of this, but gelu sounds a lot like the Latin word for it. So I don't know if that's correct. Tabbutu, coffin. Yes, but that one is not something like the youth would use today, at least in my area. Maybe in the rural areas. In the cities, we don't really use that much. But it is correct, though. He's not wrong.
Coffin comes from Arabic, tabut. There were also some words that were borrowed from Norman French, though these may not stand out as much because they were borrowed from one Romance language into another. The word
ammucciare,
meaning to hide.
Ammucciare, yeah. It's to hide. It can be used both for things or for people. Ammucciati is like hide yourself. Yeah, correct.
It comes from Norman French, musse.
That's it.
bucciere,
Meaning butcher, comes from Norman French, bucce.
I never heard that one, but maybe it's not used in Palermo, but it might be used somewhere else. Vuccieri? Oh, maybe I like a vucceria. No, but that one is just the noise. I don't know that one. Foddi, yeah, crazy.
fogge,
Meaning mad or foolish, comes from Norman French, folle.
Does it? Because in Italian it's folle. Also, this sounds more like Eastern Sicilian to me. I would say foad. I would add a U before the O. Sì, un foad, to tell someone you're crazy. But I do know friends in Catania that do say it like this exactly. Racina. Racina.
racina,
Yeah.
Meaning grape, comes from Norman French, razin.
Racina.
raggia,
Meaning rage, comes from Norman French, rage. The Italian word is
rabbia,
Correct.
both the Italian and the Norman French word came from Latin, rabbia.
Man, he did perfect. All the Sicilian words are great, and I love that he uses native speakers to pronounce them. He did a fantastic job with the Sicilian words.
So the Sicilian and Italian words are related, but in a roundabout way. There was also Greek influence on Sicilian, like I mentioned. Here are a few examples.
babbiare,
To joke.
Yeah.
This comes from the ancient Greek word babazo, which means something like to speak incomprehensibly.
We use this one all the time. Babbiare, sai sababbiano means I'm joking. Cusci sababbiano. Yeah, we use it. 100% we use it. Putia, that's a shop. Yeah. A putia. In Italian is negozio, but in Sicilian a putia. Minnivora avanza putia. Vitti un cristiano avanza putia. Putia, that's how we say it. With my mum, we would use this one as a joke. Because my mum preferred to use the Italian word, but as a joke, the nissa putia. Putia.
Apotea.
meaning the shop. This comes from Greek, apotheke, the word
Tempolata.
meaning slap, from Greek, kypto.
Ti piglio a timpolate. It means I'll hit you with a slap. Strummula.
Word
Strummola.
meaning spinning top, from Greek, strombos.
I don't even know. I don't know this one. Again, it doesn't mean he's wrong. It might just mean that I don't know it because we don't use it in my area, maybe. Or maybe I just don't know it. Oh, a strummula, the little toy. Okay, I got it. Now I got it. Took me a second. Now I got it.
The word
Schetto.
and
Schetta.
meaning single, as in unmarried, from Greek, sketos, meaning simple.
In my area, we would say schietto. With a little I added here, schietto.
Some words like these are generally common in Sicilian, but I understand that
Yeah.
there are more words of Greek origin in Sicilian dialect spoken further to the east.
Yeah, makes sense.
Variation in vocabulary is not limited to Greek loanwords, of course.
Actually, my father, he told me that in some area of Palermo itself, the word butcher that we translated with bucciere can have two other words, because, for example, the word that I know for butcher is bucciere and also
Vucciere. Yeah.
cainezziere.
Cainezziere is how I would say it. I never heard vucciere, but I mean, he's also from Palermo. I'm sure, as I say, it can be dependent on which one you use with your friends, with your family. Absolutely, I would say un cainezziere to mean a butcher, 100%.
But cainezziere comes from the Spanish carnicero, and it's completely different from Italian macellaio.
True.
And my father told me that actually there is another word or another two words, and then one of these two words was said more in an area of Palermo.
Yeah.
And that's very weird, of course, because like you want to learn a language that is not written yet.
Despite its particular influences, Sicilian is undeniably Italo-Romance, and when we look at it alongside Italian, the general similarities are obvious.
Yeah.
This Italian sentence means I want to buy bread.
Voglio comprare il pane.
Voglio comprare il pane. Voglio accattare u pane. Yep, correct.
An equivalent sentence in Sicilian is,
Voglio accattare il pane.
word for word, both sentences are, I want to buy the bread.
And you know what's interesting? I don't know if he's going to say that. Notice how our masculine singular is u, which sounds kind of like Portuguese, because I think Portuguese spells it with an O, but still pronounce it u. And then the other thing I want to say is that the word accattare, to mean to buy, is also present in Italian, but it's considered archaic. So you'll find it in the Bible in Italian. You will find them saying accattare in the Bible, even if it's written entirely in Italian. So basically, Sicilian is more conservative for a word that in standard Italian has now become a sort of old school. That's how I would say it to my friends. Like if I'm going to buy a game, I would say, ma accattare su gioco. Accattare.
They look and sound similar, right? But you probably noticed that Italian and Sicilian use some different vocabulary. In this case, the verbs meaning to buy.
Yeah.
Comprare.
In Italian and
Accattare.
in Sicilian. In Italian, there's the related verb accattare, which used to have the meaning of buy, but more recently it meant something more like to beg or to scrounge.
Accattare has to beg in Italian. I'm not so sure. I think they just don't use it. We just don't use it in Italian. Because accattare, I think they use it in other southern dialects, like in Neapolitan, I believe they use it as well. So yeah, they do actually, now that I think about it. So it's more of a southern thing. And the reason why Sicilian tends to be more conservative, I think someone is asking, I think it's because it's an island. It often happens with islands. That's why like Iceland, for instance, tends to be extremely conservative linguistically. And that's also why Sardinian, specifically Northern Sardinian, is most likely the closest language to Latin that you get. I do not think it's random that islands tend to be more linguistically conservative than the mainland, which may have more interactions, I suppose.
You can also see that the definite article is different.
Yes.
In Italian, il, and Sicilian, u, which can also be lu, depending on the variety of Sicilian. You can also see that the equivalent words are pronounced and spelled somewhat differently in Italian and Sicilian. It's very common for words in Italian with an e sound, spelled with e, to have an I sound, spelled with I in Sicilian.
I don't know if it's a e sound though. Upani. No, it's a e. I disagree with you here. It's not a e. doesn't exist in Romance languages, as far as I know. There may be some very small exceptions, but for instance, that's a sound, and I'm a Sicilian speaker, I'm native. I had to learn to say hit rather than hit, or like to say sit instead of seat. It was difficult for me because I don't have the sound. Now I'm trying to think, but in this situation, accattari, upani, it's pani. It's just that sometimes in some varieties of Sicilians, this will actually be read accattare and pane. So they will put a full-on e. So it's either e or e. It's not a e. There may be exceptions, perhaps I can't think of right now, but if you look at these, it's not pa, it's a e, pani. Or you swap it to a complete e.
We see this in the Italian word
pane,
and Sicilian.
pani,
We can also see it in the infinitive form of the first verb,
volere,
in Italian and
voleri,
in Sicilian. Another example is the Italian word for love,
amore,
and Sicilian.
amori,
I would like to underline that whoever did the Italian, I'm going to provide some commentary here, but whoever did the Italian recording is a Sicilian. He has an accent. So when he does amori, it's pretty good. Like, obviously, he's doing it perfectly in a Sicilian way. But then again, if maybe, and this is something we could do together, Langfocus. I'm not saying like you are the big channel when it comes to languages, so I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, invite me. No, if anything, be great to have you come to my channel, because I don't want to be disrespectful. But I would be really happy to look at these words, for instance, at one point, and discuss how to pronounce an accentless standard Italian as opposed to a Sicilian inflated Italian, if you know what I mean. So for instance, in this case, the guy said amore, amore. So the O was very open, and that, and not to mention, but there is also pace and intonation that gives it as, oh, that's a Sicilian guy who recorded. If I had to go, and I did study diction at university, so I know how to switch between the two. I'm trained. Kind of what voice actors do, for instance. And if I had to go accentless on this, I would say amore, amore. The difference is not only the intonation, but the O and the E are closed vowels. So amore rather than amore. All right? I don't know if you can tell the difference, but I mean, I'm sure he can because he's trained. O instead of O. And knowing when you open a vowel, so O, and when you close it, O, or in the case of the other vowel, E versus E, it takes a lot of practice even for a native speaker. Because no one has these open and closed vowels natively unless you're from Tuscany. People in Rome tend to have them very close to it, but in my experience, it's only people from Tuscany that have them perfect. Everyone else opens and closes vowels regionally. So in this case, amore would be the standard sort of, I know that accentless, it's a controversial way to put it, but you know what I mean. Standard way of saying it.
In these examples, you can also see that O in Italian often corresponds to U in Sicilian.
Absolutely.
Italian,
colore,
meaning color, and Sicilian,
colori,
Italian,
domani,
and Sicilian,
romani.
Notice that the D was like an R, Rumani.
Another thing to note is that in some varieties of Sicilian, D becomes R, an alveolar tap when followed by a vowel. Yep. That's a consonant you might associate with R more than D, especially at the beginning of a word. In Palermo, it's
romani.
It's exactly how we say it. Rumani. Rumani mattina, tomorrow morning.
Italian,
fiore,
meaning flower, is Sicilian,
sciori.
In this example, we can see that the first consonant is different too. What's up with that? Well, this is an example of a regular sound correspondence between Italian and Sicilian. Fl in Latin became fi in Italian, but became sci in Sicilian. These words come from Latin florem.
He did it as a he, though. Let me hear it again.
Italian, but became sci in Sicilian.
Oh, it's like, so, it depends on the area in Sicily. In Palermo, it's more like a SH, but softer. So it's similar to the X in Mandarin, a little bit, maybe. I'm trying to see if I can find it, because it's shuri. It's like a sh. But there are areas in Sicily that say churi, like a ch. So it depends on the area. Something similar happens at the end, like if you have a word like light, luce, standard Italian. In my area in Palermo, the ch becomes luce. So it's more of a sh. But like in areas such as southern Sicily, like Agrigento, they turn it into a G, luce. So you can tell immediately where someone is from, just from the accent, just how they render some sounds.
These words come from Latin florem.
Yeah.
Another example is Latin flumen, meaning river, which
Usciume.
became Italian
fiume,
Usciume.
and Sicilian.
sciume,
Similarly, Latin pl became Italian p, but in Sicilian it becomes chi. Planta, Latin for plant, became
pianta,
in Italian and
pianta,
in Sicilian. Plangere, the Latin verb meaning to wail or lament, became
piangere,
in Italian and
chiancere,
in
Chianciri, but I'm actually learning here because I know these words naturally. Chianciri, simplica chiancisi, which means why you always cry. But I didn't know that that chianciri came from plangere because of how the P evolved into. I did not know that. So he's actually teaching me stuff about Sicilian. I love it, and I love this guy.
Sicilian, which both mean to cry. Also, where Latin l is followed by an I, together pronounced li, in Italian it becomes y, and in Sicilian it becomes a doubled y or g,
Very true.
usually followed by the vowel sound e. Latin familia, meaning family, became
famiglia,
in Italian and
famiglia,
in Sicilian.
Yep.
Mulier, Latin for wife, became
moglie,
in Italian and
moghiere,
in Sicilian.
I want to show you. Yeah, mughiere. A me mughiere.
For wife became
moglie,
in Italian
You see the way he said it, even in this case, moglie. Standard, moglie. I know you might think it sounds the same. It actually doesn't. The vowel is closed, o, but the GL, you can tell where someone is from by the way they render the GL sound. In standard, it's a l. It can be difficult. Figlio, famiglia, moglie, foglia, l. That's standard. And it's commonly natively spoken like this in center north. So like Tuscany, Rome, that's how they say it. If you go south, like this speaker and me natively, we simplify it into a Y. So it becomes y, moglie, figlio, famiglia, foglia. It's like a Y. If you go in the north, some people, not everyone, but some people will simplify it, basically drop the G completely and read it as an L. Familia, maybe not with moglie, but with a word like filio, familia, mia figlia, yeah, they do that.
and
moghiere,
in Sicilian. And one more. Latin doubled L is a doubled L in Italian as well, but in Sicilian it's a doubled D,
Bella.
or J. Latin bellus, meaning beautiful or pleasant, became
bello,
in Italian, but
bello,
in Sicilian. Another
In my area, I would say beardo.
element of Sicilian pronunciation
But again, it's not wrong the way he put it there. Beddu is how they say it in some other areas.
that's worth pointing out is that most of the voiced consonants tend to be pronounced as doubled at the beginning of a word. A mia, meaning to me, sounds like
a mea,
the word for red.
rosso,
There are other
Did you notice the double R?
a mea,
the word for red.
rosso,
All right, let me say a couple of things here as well. He did a fantastic job with like to think that someone who doesn't speak Sicilian knows so much about Sicilian. It's very heartwarming. I love it. Did you notice that the double R sound here was almost like a J in the French word je suis, je, ou giusto, giusto. Not everyone does it. For instance, you could say cappuccetto rosso. Yeah, some people do that, and other people just read it as a strong trilled R. Cappuccetto rosso. Some people say it like that. That means Little Red Riding Hood, the Red Hood from the tales. Uomo ragno, ragno meaning or ragno, depending on how you want to do the R, is spider.
There are other pronunciation quirks of the various dialects too. The speaker in this video is from Palermo, the largest city in Sicily.
Yeah.
In the Palermo dialect, when r is followed by a consonant, it's pronounced like e. The word for door
porta,
is pronounced
poita,
Or puaita. You can even add a U here, but yeah, correct.
the word for late
tardo,
becomes.
taido,
Yeah.
There's also diphthongization in some vowels. For example,
fesa,
meaning party becomes.
fiesa,
Correct. Fiesa. Yeah, that's right. I would never know how to explain someone to do this T because it's not completely gone. I'm sure he'll do it. He's really good at doing that. It's still there a little bit, but I don't say fiesta. I say fiesa. But it's not like fiesa. Oh, it's so difficult to explain it.
Also notice that the cluster st is pronounced like s with the T silent.
It's almost, but it's not silent. My gosh, I don't know how to explain it. It's one of those things that only natives can tell, I guess. And how do you... So, let's see if I can explain it. If I completely remove the T and it went completely silent, it would be fiesa. Fiesa. Sa. Just sa. But the reality is that there is a little bit of lengthening there, which it's like you are only hinting that the T was supposed to be there, but then you don't commit. Does that make sense? It's like you're almost starting to engage the parts of the mouth to pronounce the T, but then you give up at the last moment. Maybe that's a good way. You know what's it's like like the beginning of a glottal stop. Maybe it's like when you say forgot, but you went forgot. It's not that you are saying actually forgot. It's not completely mute. Like that's what a glottal stop is. Like you're starting to pronounce it, you don't fully extend it, you like give up. It's like a feint, like in combat. That's how I would explain this. I actually think I did a good job.
Foco.
Meaning fire becomes
Fuoco.
Yeah.
And don't forget the feature I mentioned earlier. D at the beginning of a word followed by a vowel becomes an alveolar trill.
Romane.
Yes.
Grammar. In terms
Alright, the grammar part, guys, go watch the original video because I want him to get the engagement, but he did such a good job, and I am gonna watch this on my own. I just want to watch the entire thing. Suvina miagyu rikidu ka vivi ieri. I'm just reading this. Suvina miagyu rikidu ka vivi ieri. Iddu mirisse ka veni rumani. Yeah. Oh, then he has different pronunciation. That's awesome. That's awesome. He did a great job. To speak, how much do you speak Sicilian and how much do you speak Italian? Oh, that's a good question. Wait.
So that tells me that Sicilian is a distinct language from Italian.
Then you are the man for saying that.
To speak the local language.
Some Sicilian speakers have told me that they themselves are sometimes unaware of whether they're speaking Sicilian or Italian, at least until they think about it, because they sort of function like two registers of one language being spoken on a continuum.
Man, that's spot on. Exactly. That's how I was brought up. Also because my mom speaks Sicilian, my dad doesn't, because he's northern. But in general, yeah, that's what you do. You can switch between the two. Even though they function very differently, the grammar is different sometimes. And one thing, I don't know if I'm sure he said it in the grammar part, but one thing we do in Sicilian is that we tend to put the verb at the end when it's an emphatic clause. So you want to present emphasis. Sicilians will put the verb at the end, a bit like Latin. And that's something that is so characteristic of Sicilian that whenever I did use it without even thinking, when I was in mainland, everybody was like, Sicilian. And I was like, what do you mean you don't do that? And like, no. To give you an example, if I want to say I am Sicilian, I would say sogno Siciliano. Sogno Siciliano. So sogno meaning I am, Siciliano meaning Sicilian. But if someone says, oh my gosh, you speak Sicilian, and I want to emphasize, well, I am Sicilian, you know how you're doing it in English, I am Sicilian, so like, of course, then I would say Siciliano sogno, and I would put sogno at the end, so Sicilian, I am Siciliano sogno. And that's something we do a lot, and usually people from mainland don't. As far as I know, no one in mainland does it.
But the distinction becomes clearer when I think about the children of Sicilian migrants around the world who learned Sicilian as a native language but never formally learned Standard Italian. I've heard from some of them that Standard Italian is like a foreign language to them, just like Spanish or another Romance language is. So that tells me that Sicilian is a distinct language from Italian while still being a language of Italy.
100%. My dad still doesn't, like if my dad calls me tomorrow and we speak on the phone, and instead of saying the Italian, pronto, ciao papà, come stai, che hai fatto oggi di bello, ti sei divertito con tua sorella, that would be just a sentence in Italian. If I switch and it starts speaking Sicilian, che è papà, che facissi stamattina, tenisse a mangiare un panino capuicchetta putia. If I do that, my dad will not understand a word of what I said. And so and his son is Sicilian, so imagine someone who doesn't even have a connection.
The question of the day. To native speakers of Sicilian, how much do you speak Sicilian and how much do you speak Italian?
Yeah, so I will use 100% Italian in a formal situation. Like I won't even use a single word of Sicilian. And unless the people in that context start using Sicilian, and then I understand it's accepted, and then I might do it. But I would normally, if it's formal, 100% Italian. If it's a job interview, 100% Italian. If I'm speaking to someone who's not Sicilian, but they're from another area of Italy, 100% Italian. But if I'm with good friends, like people that we were brought up together, I will switch to 100% Sicilian. If we are like having fun. If we are joking, having fun, playing a game, maybe you're playing Call of Duty, Sicilian is a language. Sicilian is a language. With other Sicilian, te sparo un te sganghi guaina. That's gonna be Sicilian. But then, if like a parent enters the room, imagine you're teenagers, a parent enters the room, I wouldn't speak Sicilian to the parent, to their father. I would say like, buongiorno, grazie, grazie, arrivederci. I would switch to Italian. So we switch constantly. And it really becomes a situation of, you would have to ask me like 50 different situations that I would tell you when I use Sicilian, when I use Italian. And that's me. But depending on which area of Sicily you're brought up in, you might speak Sicilian more than me, because we were brought up in an area that tended to speak Italian, who was more educated. If you were brought up in an area like Zen, which means Zona Espansione Nord, northern expansion zone of Palermo, there are lovely people that live there, but it's an area where you have a lot of council houses and there is poverty. Then they would speak Sicilian a lot of the time, and in a lot of situations where I wouldn't. And then there might be some Sicilians that are so polite and maybe the upper class that they don't even use Sicilian, and when they try to use it, you can tell. You're like, yeah, but you're not really good at Sicilian, are you? So strangely enough, that does happen too. Anyways, phenomenal job. I'll go watch the rest on my own, but I just want to say, Langfocus, you did a fantastic job. Give you a like, and absolutely keep up the good work, man. You're great.